Hey guys, it's Alicia Nightingale with Windermere Columbia River Gorge. I'm sitting here with Laura Klement from Enerstructa in the Dalles, and I'm so excited to hear about what she does in sustainability design and builds, and just to hear more about you personally. So Laura, go ahead.
Hi, Alicia. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Well, I came to the Gorge about 4 years ago now. I was living in Portland before that, working for other people. And then I grew up in Minnesota on a farm, so I'm very rural. So now the Dalles kind of feels more like home to me because it's more working class. And I live out in the country where I'm building my house right now, an off-grid zero energy house. But my background is in, my education is in design. I have an undergraduate of architecture degree. And then I built homes with Habitat for Humanity for a little bit, and got into weatherization work and home energy assessments and then solar installs. And so that's really kind of brought me full circle to what I studied in college, which was sustainable design build. So that's where I'm working more now as with my own company, Enerstructa. And I do consulting for new construction. So I work with builders to help them adapt new measures and ways of building that are more energy efficient and are going to make their homes more durable in the long term. And so I help them I'm out on site doing site visits, and I do energy modeling for them, and I help them achieve certifications like the Energy Trust of Oregon, Energy Performance Score, and Earth Advantage certification. So some of these home labeling programs that help builders market their homes so that, you know, they're not just saying they're building a better home, but they can prove it with a certification. So that's, a lot of the work I do. And I do some work. I help homeowners with their homes, solving comfort challenges and just talking about how to make upgrades and improvements when they're doing remodels in their homes, that kind of a thing too. And not right now with COVID, but I do DIY classes for home improvement stores across Oregon and Washington. And in the Gorge, I usually do some women's woodworking series. So
Awesome.
I'm kind of all over the place, but I'm not all over the place, but I have a lot of interests and passions.
Yeah. Tell me about some of the projects that you have worked on or an upcoming one you're really excited about.
Yeah. A project I'm working on right now is to create a cottage cluster community in the Dalles of, I like to call them right-sized homes or attainable homes that are, you know, really someone who's like me, who's younger, who would be a first-time home buyer, but also homes that are for people who are aging in place. So having an accessible design. So, and having them in this little community where people can, have their own space, but then also come together. So I'm really excited about that, and to really create them in a way that they are going to be ready for the future. So, incorporating things like really efficient water heaters and heating systems, and good insulation, and possibly even solar to help them not have utility bills or very high utility bills.
Awesome. Yeah. So are you partnering with contractors, builders in the area to do projects like that, or helping them kind of ensure that people are being energy efficient? Yeah,
so I work with a lot of work with builders who are participating in the Energy Trust of Oregon New Homes program called the Energy Performance Score. And so with them, ideally at the start of the project, in the design phase, we can talk about incorporating things, like, what kind of water heater are we going to pick for this project? Can we add more insulation here and there? And what do those additional measures cost? And then, there's cash incentives that are a part of this programs. And so that's kind of, they're there to help builders sort of build to this next level up of where code will eventually require them to be, but it's right now it's optional. So I go out, so I'm meeting with them in person on site. I'm doing energy modeling. I'm texting them and calling them when they have questions, and just trying to find some of the best solutions that work for their projects.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit more about the the scoring system for Energy Trust of Oregon. What is a good score?
Right.
Yeah.
So there are several different home energy labeling and or scoring programs out there. So one is Energy Trust of Oregon, EPS, which is an Oregon program for new construction. And then there's another thing called a HERS rating, which is a nationwide scoring system. So that's outside of Oregon, it's used a lot more. And then there's also a home energy score program that Oregon has, and that can be for new or existing homes. So yeah, the Energy Trust of Oregon one, a good score it's based on a scale of like 0 to 100. And so the closer you are to 0, that would mean that's better.
Okay.
And so, there's a trend right now to be building zero energy homes. So that would be a house that has a score of somewhere between 0 and 10.
Okay.
So that would be with a house that has solar installed as well. So there's definitely some homes that are down in those lower numbers. What I'm seeing here locally is, homes are being built compared to current code around 20 to 30% better than code. So,
Okay.
and that in scoring, that could look like a score of like 50 or 60 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So a code home might be like 70 or 80. So yeah.
Yeah. So as I'm sure you may know, the cost of living in the Gorge can be pretty challenging. And so purchasing a home is, it can be difficult for folks, especially buying a brand new house. So you're seeing a lot of older homes throughout the Gorge that are definitely not energy efficient. What are some things that people can do to lower their footprint and be a little greener in their home?
Yeah, great question. So really this is a really good place to have a home energy assessor, someone like myself come out and come in and come out to the home and look at sort of what the insulation levels are like, air sealing details, how old furnaces are and water heaters and that kind of a thing, to have a really in-depth assessment. But before that, a lot of utility programs just utilities will have sort of a checklist of sort of like what things you can look for in your home to improve efficiency. Things usually recommended are like changing out your light bulbs to LEDs, installing low flow shower heads and fixtures. So this is more than just like an energy savings. It's also water conservation as well.
Okay, yeah,
so kind
that makes
of
sense.
looking at both of those things. But really like one of the biggest things that I see people do, because a lot of people know that they should add more insulation to their homes. But what gets sort of forgotten, even amongst some contractors, is that you need to do air sealing before you do the insulation, because a lot of old homes have all these sort of like cavities and spaces that are sort of like in between the inside and the outside of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't seal those off and you just add insulation, the air can just move through the insulation and it doesn't really make it do its job well.
Gotcha.
Like it's
so
just kinda,
how do you go about sealing things?
it really depends.
Okay.
There are sometimes insulation contractors will do that, but for a DIYer, you can, like for example, in an attic, if you just have like a flat ceiling on your top level of your house, and you're the type of person to go get dirty, you can look for any places where like wires and pipes are coming up through the plates of the walls, and if there's just the wire there and there's like a hole drilled with wire, you can add like spray foam in there or caulk.
Oh, okay.
Or if it's a bigger hole, like sometimes if there's a dropped soffit like in a kitchen above cabinets, that's another spot where there's just, it's
Empty
not
space.
sealed off. There's just space. So you can put like a rigid material, like rigid foam board or plywood on top of that, and then seal off the perimeter edges.
Okay.
That kind of thing. Like, or like some other ideas are, your outlets, switches, and your outlets and your switches. There's gaskets you can install by like taking off the plate of your outlet and then putting this foam gasket in and putting the plate back on.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yep.
Gosh, my partner and I, Tanner and I, we purchased a house up in the Heights, and it was built in 1916 and did not have a lick of insulation in the entire place, single pane windows, all this stuff. And I was able to stumble across this really cool program, and I thought it was through the Energy Trust of Oregon, but you'd probably know better, but where I could kind of go through and document how inefficient my house was and do certain things that I could turn into them and say, hey, I've improved my energy consumption. And they actually did like a kickback. So for example, we replaced our windows. And so I just sent to them that I purchased windows at a certain energy score.
Yeah.
And then they ended up reimbursing some money. It wasn't a lot, but are you familiar with that program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's similar to the program for new construction.
Okay.
But it's for there's an existing home side.
Gotcha.
Of Energy Trust. And so all these sort of rebate programs are funded by utilities. So no matter where you are, it's best to reach out to whoever your local utility is.
Okay.
Like in Hood River, it's Pacific Power. And then in the Dalles, it's the Wasco County PUD or Northern Wasco County PUD.
Yep.